Greetings, and welcome to my channel. I'm the Anunnaki Theorist. This video is going to sound a lot like conspiracy theory. And unfortunately, because when you start getting into ideas of the shadow government, the deep state, Illuminati, things like that, yeah, those are conspiracy theories. And a lot of the sources that I'm going to pull from are essentially conspiracy theories. But because we don't have proof that these things exist, the only sources that we have are the actual conspiracy theory sources. In my last video, I talked about the incarnations of Marduk, or personas of Marduk. And I said that, he was exiled to Earth, and the reason why he was exiled to Earth is because he took a human wife. Okay, if you don't know about that, watch my previous video. Okay, but he was exiled to Earth, and he decided that he was going to go ahead and rule Earth. Now, his ultimate agenda, of course, is to rule Earth and heaven, Nibiru. Okay, but before he can, gain the power that's required to take over heaven, he first has to rule Earth. So in order to do that, he went ahead and, him and his family, they went ahead and created systems. They created systems that would allow their relative few to control us, many. Now, there are 4 areas that you kind of have to control in order to have total control. And the first one, of course, is religion. And I showed in my previous video that he did that. He did that by usurping all the other religions' cults. Because the Anunnaki left, they didn't shut down their cult centers, and he came and said, hey, I'm still here. So he usurped all the cults, and he said, I'm the only one. The next area that you have to control is you have to control politics, governments. Okay, and he has done that. He did that when he gave us Republic. And of course, I showed the Code of Hammurabi and how that was the start. The next thing is you have to control the economy. You have to make a currency that you can control. Now, the dollar is not doing too good right now. I'm in the United States, so I have to deal with, the dollar. But, if you've been watching the news, you've been seeing that a lot of countries are dropping the dollar as the reserve currency. And they're going with, like Chinese currency as their reserve. So, but anyway, I'm not really wanting to go into that because that's a big old can of worms. But the currency that we usually use, the dollar, okay, it used to be backed by something. It actually was backed by something that was tangible, gold. Now, eventually I will get into a video where I talk about the whole reason why we see gold as valuable. But for our currency, it was backed by something. You either have a gold standard or you have a silver standard. There's talk about where you could have a hydrocarbon standard. It's like those nations that are rich with oil, they could technically have this to back their currency. And in fact, I don't know, it was something like 12 to 15 years ago or something like that. A buddy of mine, he went ahead and invested in some Iraqi currency because it was rumored that they were going to start doing this. They were going to start backing their currency with oil. And so, that if they would have done that, then that would have made that currency worth a lot of money. And it never happened. But the dollar nowadays is backed by a promise. That's it. There is no physical backing to it. No gold, no silver, nothing. It's backed by the promise that it is valuable. And it is my belief that this is one of the things that Marduk did. We've got this central bank, or the Fed, and they control essentially our economy. I mean, he who controlled, you ever heard of the golden rule? I don't remember exactly where it came from. I think it was one of the Robin Hoods or something like that. But it said, the golden rule is he who controls the gold makes the rules. And that's what we see. Those that have control of the Fed, they have control of the money. It's not backed by anything except a promise. They have control. So you have religion, you have politics, you have the economy, and finally, you have media and entertainment. What we see on the news, or the fake news, and this is one of the things that former President Trump, he told us about two of these things. He told us about the deep state, and he told us about fake news. Again, like I said, conspiracy theories, that's what this all sounds like. But when you look into it, it kind of makes sense. Okay. So you got those four areas that Marduk created systems for. Alright. So I'm going to come here. This is somebody that I've talked about in the past. This is Wes Penray. Now, this is paper 14. Okay, I mean, he's got, a whole slew of things, and you can read through any of them. A lot of what he's known for is talking about the Illuminati, and I'll get into that later on in the video. But for this, he is talking about Marduk, and he's talking about how Marduk is still here, and how Marduk, he has set up what he calls the Cordium. Okay. When the Anunnaki were here, they had a council. I've talked about the Council of Anunnaki before. Now, depending on which interpretation you go by, which translation, you have anywhere from 3, which would be the Trinity, or the 7 who judge, or the 12. 12 Anunnaki, starting with Anu and going all the way down to, I think it might have been Nergal, would have been one of the, but this was essentially the council. Any decisions, major decisions, as I talked about in my Time, Fate, and Prophecy video, where they dictated the fates of mankind, not the metaphysical fates, not, it's nothing like that. When we talk about the fates, it's talking about, okay, this is what's going to happen to mankind. But whenever you had a major decision, you had to bring the council together. Well, all the Anunnaki were gone except for those few that returned with Marduk. I'll get into that here in a minute. And he created his cordium. Now, the cordium nowadays is probably not Anunnaki or Agigi, at least not in their natural form. I'm quite sure he has taught ascension to many of his followers, and they have reincarnated as someone who is in power now. I'm not going to name any names, primarily because, I don't want the FBI coming knocking at my door. But well, there will be a few names that I name, but they will be somewhat irrelevant at the time. Okay, so you have the cordium. Now, before I go any further in that, we need to kind of get a little bit of a background of what the cordium is, at least where Wes Penray uses the term. Okay, there is it's a story. I don't know if they want to classify it as fiction or if it's non-fiction or what it is. But there is an old story that talks about the wing makers. When you get into the alien phenomena and things like that, then you really get into the idea of the wing makers. Now, the wing makers, it says this is a story chronicles the hero's journey of Dr. Neruda. Okay, did Dr. Neruda actually exist? Or was he just a fictional character? I mean, there are some things in here that we see that is factual. It's not fiction, so okay. But what I'm trying to get in here is the cordium is actually a race of extraterrestrials. Okay. The cordium that Marduk has could be comprised of some extraterrestrials. As I pointed out in my last video, I've already suggested that Marduk more than likely has made an alliance with the Greys. Is the cordium the Greys? I don't know. There are a lot of things that, and I'll show you this here in a minute, that things have happened in the past, in the recent past, that Wes Penray talks about prior to the facts that we actually have. And this supposedly comes from well, let me get into it. Okay, this is Michael E. Hill, and when you get into the wing makers, you get into the idea of this individual known as 15. 15 is supposed to be, I don't know, I guess the liaison between the cordium and humanity. And this is supposed to have been A.R. Borden. Is he truly 15? Is he truly this individual that's talked about in the Wingmakers, that's talked about with the cordium? Again, these things we cannot confirm because, well, first of all, Mr. Borden is dead. But according to Michael Lee Hill, he says that, yeah, this is the case. And then we get this. This is a book written by A.R. Borden. Now, I'm not going to go into it. The link will be in the description. It's long. If you want to read it, it's there. Okay, so I want to go back to Marduk and his cordium. Now, the one thing that the cordium does, and like I said, this is all as part of a control mechanism, is he gets into, well, him and his family and his minions. They do things, and Mr. Penray, he talks about it. And of course, remember I said deep state, shadow government, the global elite. Okay? They do things, and these are the things that they do. Oh, side note, because we're going to see this a lot in this. Through A.R. Borden's link meetings, we call them the Anunnaki. Those from heaven to earth came. Okay, or heaven to earth. But that is not what they are called. That is not their extraterrestrial race name. We are earthlings, and we come from Earth. Well, they are the Sha'ami. Sha'ami. And they come from Sha'ame. And it's a E, not an I. Okay, so just a little side note. That's what they call it. I'm still going to call them the Anunnaki. Okay, so this is talking about how they created their Council of 12. They use hybrids. Now, these are either Anunnaki hybrids or these are gray human hybrids. Of course, the purer your bloodline. Of course, like I said, you know, religion, politics, business, education, media, entertainment, the banking systems, you know, all this. This is what they control. This is what you have to control if you want to control a population. Okay, of course, like I said, the banking systems. Now, when I first learned about how the banking systems work, I mean how they really work, there was a couple of videos. It was probably about 20 years ago. If you've never seen the Zeitgeist videos, I encourage you to go find those and watch them. Again, it sounds like conspiracy theory, but it does give you a little bit more insight. And as I said, you know, the banking system, the currency, the economy, something that you have to control if you want to control the population. And the Zeitgeist videos, they kind of go really in depth in how the banking system works. Okay, this is something that we see in today's society. This is something that we see that is happening to us today. They use a divide and conquer method. Problem, reaction, solution. And of course, at this time, this is, you know, essentially after 9/11, which, if you think about it, after the incident in 9/11, after the Twin Towers fell, the world changed. You know, we had new policies and protocols and everything like that went into place that wasn't there before. So the world changed, and you know, there are a lot of conspiracy theories about that. Was it an inside job? You know, who knew about it? Blah blah blah. Okay, Penray talks about this, and this is something that, you know, they would have used. Okay, the 300 who stayed on Earth, the majority of them, around 200, are loyal to Marduk. Oh, here's something that I really need to point out, and I think I touched on it a little bit in one of my earlier videos, and if I didn't, I'm definitely going to go into it here. Okay. I disagree with what they use here. Okay. There are technically 5 factions, or at least there were. According to A.R. Borden, the Sha'ami, they are one. They have achieved oneness. In other words, well, he talks about biominde. He talks about that they've achieved one consciousness. I don't look at the metaphysical aspects. I look at oneness, meaning there's no longer any factions. They have come together as one species, which is something that we need to do. I mean, you look at what's going on today. You've got, you get your racial issues, you've got your gender issues, you've got your religious issues. Things like, we need to come together and realize that we are one species. Well, that's what the Anunnaki have done. They have come together, they have released their factions, and they have come together as one species. But before then, there was 5 factions. Okay, you had the Serpent Clan. These were the Ankyites. You had the Bull Clan, not the Ram. You had the Bull Clan, which was the Enlilites. Then you had 3 splinter factions. And the first one was the Eagle Clan. Now, there's some videos out there that talk about the battle between the eagle and the serpent. They're out there. You can look them up if you so desire. But the Eagle Clan, the leader of the Eagle Clan was Ninurta. Now, when you look up Ninurta, you see that Ninurta's symbol, what his icon is the double-headed eagle. Now, where else have we seen the double-headed eagle? 2 places. Rome and Nazi Germany. Now, I'm not trying to say that Ninurta was, that had anything to do with those. I'm just saying that, we've seen that particular symbol. Okay? The next splinter faction would be the Lion. And these were the followers of Inanna. And then finally, we have the Ram. The Ram is Marduk's faction. I mean, seriously, this is Marduk. He's an agricultural god. He's holding a sheaf of grain, and this is a goat. But the goat and the ram, they're kind of in that same family. And of course, remember I said that Marduk is Satan, and one of the symbols of Satan is the goat head. Well, goat. Okay. Okay, so I'm done with that. Okay. So yeah, you get the different things that the Cordium are doing. Okay, war. Think about this. Especially here in the United States. In the Constitution, it states that as long as there's no war going on, our military, our standing military, is actually supposed to be disbanded. The only thing that we're supposed to have is like the National Guard, the reserves. That's it. Our standing military is supposed to be dissolved as long as there's no war. We are always at war. There's always a conflict somewhere where we're having to have our troops ready. Okay, so, they're always creating a war or a conflict somewhere. Look at what's going on today. We get into the whole idea of man-made diseases. I mean, it's still conspiracy theory, but it's actually kind of panning out to be some form of a truth that our last pandemic was actually created And there is supposedly some truth, there's some facts, things like that that are showing that yes, that was the case. And then of course where the funding was coming from, and yeah, it's a mess. Okay. Now this one's bad. One of the ways that they control their underlings, I mean, they're still somewhat in the know. They don't know exactly who their masters are, but they still serve the Cordium. I'm not going to read it, but it's right here. Anybody remember Pizzagate? And like I said, this was written in 2011. And Pizzagate was 2016, 2017. So here is where Penray knows something, and he's giving us the heads up. Okay, now when we get into the global elite, we get into the various families. And of course, there's 12, 13 if you get into the royal family. I'm not going to go too much into this, because some of these, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. Most people have heard of the Rockefellers. Most people have heard of the Rothschilds. You get the European royal family. But some of these you don't really hear about too much. The Astor, the Bundy, DuPont. Yeah, we've heard of that. Okay. Yeah. These are the corporations. This is all part of the whole controlling the economy. So these corporations, yeah, they have control of. Okay. Marduk's Council of 12, the Cordium. Alright, this is supposed to have been a list of who was who, but this is, I don't know what he was going with this. I mean, they're still using the Anunnaki names. That's not their names anymore. Either they've been recruited from reincarnated Egeji and Anunnaki, or they've been recruited from actual humans, which would have been down here lower on the list. Yeah. Okay, so where I'm wanting to go with this is what the Cordium controls. The great unions that a lot of us Earthlings put a lot of stock into, especially if they're going to protect us. If they're going to protect us, if they're going to control foreign policies, things like this. Okay, so you've got the EU, you have the UN, you have the AU, you have NATO. These are all the great unions, and the Cordium controls them. Of course, here we go, NATO. Now, here's something I want to talk about. When Russia was the Soviet Union, when they were communist, they were not part of the Cordium. But President Reagan brought President Gorbachev into the Cordium. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. That was when Russia was brought into the cordium. Now remember, this was written in 2011. Putin's third term was in 2012. Now remember how I told you that it's my belief that Marduk's stronghold is in Antarctica. In 2012, when Putin started his third term, he took a trip to Antarctica. And when he came back is when he started acting the way that he is now. He's trying to put the Soviet Union back together. Now, a lot of people believe, because he was former KGB, that he longs for those glory days of the Soviet Union. The thing is, though, is he was KGB. And so he would have been privy to certain shadowy things. So he would have known about Marduk. So it's my belief that when he started his third term, he was done. He knew the return was going to be coming, and he no longer wanted to be under the thumb of the cordium. So he took a trip to Antarctica, and he told the boss himself to go stick it. Now, there's one other thing about Antarctica that I want to say. And I'm not going to name any names on this one because this individual is still in power. On the day of the 2016 presidential election, as the results were coming through, this individual took a trip to Antarctica. Now, the public face on it was this individual was going to go collect research data on global warming, climate change, whatever your terminology you want to use. And that's one of the things that they do in Antarctica. They do collect that data because it's a great place to do it because they're watching the ice sheets melt and grow, and there's all kinds of things out there because of that. But as soon as this individual left Antarctica, they went to New Zealand. And almost immediately, New Zealand suffered a 7.2 earthquake. Coincidence? It's my belief, and there's actually a few others that think this is probably what happened. This individual drew the short straw. They were the ones that was supposed to go and tell the boss that the cordium lost control. And in a fit of rage, Marduk tried to kill the messenger. Now, a lot of people will be like, well, how could that happen? Well, it's not necessarily that it's going to control geologic things, but we do have an array, at least one, there might be more, that is called HARP. I know this is getting back into conspiracy theory, but there is one thing that you can look up that is a fact. If you look up the patent for the HARP array, in the patent, it says that there is a strong potential that this system that they set up could affect the weather. It says that in the patent. Now, does it actually do it? Is that what they actually use it for? But if we have that kind of a system, why couldn't Marduk have a system to cause earthquakes? Okay, so there's that. We're going to get back in here. All right. Well, you can pretty much read this. You know, there's, like I said, there is a lot. But a lot of these, we're dealing with this kind of stuff today. Now, I'm going to get into it a lot more in coming videos. But I want to point out that Marduk, his original power base, his primary nation was Babylon. Now, Babylon has been gone for thousands of years. But when we get into the Bible, it says that Babylon has fallen. And this is in the book of Revelation. It says Babylon has fallen. Woe to Babylon. Wait a minute. Even at the time when John supposedly wrote the book of Revelation, Babylon had already fallen. By at least 1,000 years. So what are they talking about? The United States of America is the new, or as some interpretations say, Mystery Babylon. And it is falling. Okay. I'm going to get into something that, I mean, yes, all this sounds like conspiracy theory, but this takes the cake. This is either, if it's true, holy crap, but because of where it was written, I mean, it's written on free webs. Okay, anybody that knows, website creation and things like that, free webs allows anybody to make anything. So you get into this. The Supreme Anunnaki Assembly of Lord Marduk. Now, granted, I'm talking about the whole idea that Marduk is in control of everything. So, if this is correct, holy crap! And, of course, it's password protected. I don't actually have the password myself, but do have this. Now, here's the interesting thing. That said the Supreme Assembly. This says the Supreme Anunnaki Alliance of Lord Marduk. So again, this is another reason why it's kind of like, yeah, this is even more of a conspiracy theory than some of the stuff that I've already talked about. But, this is when you get into the NSA, the CIA, MI6, Mossad, various things. And of course, it's supposed to be a splinter group of Accio, headquarters Pine Gap. Oh, here's something that kind of cracks me up. When I first started studying this, when I first heard about the SAALM, there was a show that came on, and I watched it on Netflix, called Pine Gap. And it was basically a whole NSA thing, and it was like a cross between NSA and NCIS or something. But it just I thought it was funny that I had just started studying about this, and then here comes this show that he was talking. Okay, granted, it didn't go into anything like what this is, but anyway. You get into here, and there's a lot. I'm telling you, if this individual that created, the idea of the SAALM, if it is a hoax, if it's, just somebody being creative, yeah, they're incredibly creative. They're kind of using that genius in the wrong arena. Stop hoaxing. Write for freaking movies and stuff like that. Give us fiction. Don't try to pass it off as something that's real. But again, if it is real, holy crap. Okay. Now we're going to come down here. And again, the link will be in the description so you can read it if you so desire. But this is what I was wanting to get into. In the mythology, it talks about how after Horus's job was done, after he defeated Set, that he supposedly became a pharaoh. And that's pretty much the end of his story. What happened to him? Well, Horus is essentially Marduk's grandson. Marduk had Nabu with Sharpanet. But when Marduk was Ra, he had another wife, and he had a son and a daughter, Osiris and Isis. Of course, those that know the Egyptian mythology, they know that Set killed Osiris and split him up. Isis had to go find all of his pieces, couldn't find his phallus, and so she made one out of gold, and using it, she got herself pregnant, and she had Horus. And Horus was supposed to, grow up and then go defeat Set, which, again, if you know the mythology, that's what happened. Alright. So, when it was Ra had control of Kemet, and then of course he was banished. And then Thoth came, and he took over Kemet, which originally, eventually became Egypt. Okay, so when Ra came back, when Marduk came back, and he found that everything that he did for Kemet, for the people, that Ningishita, Thoth, overturned. He kind of screwed everything up. But one of the things that he was really upset about is it says, of making Horon to a desert place depart. Now Horon, that's Horus. A place that has no water. A boundless place where sexual pleasures are not enjoyed. So again, we're not really told what happened to Horus after he became pharaoh. But this kind of tells us he became a hedonist. Again, Marduk probably taught all of his family ascension. Is Horus Caligula? Look up Caligula. He was a baddie. But we get into the Eye of Horus. Now some people say it's the Eye of Ra. But you get the eye on the back of the dollar. You get the eye in the Freemasonry lodges. And you get the eye that you find that supposedly some musicians, entertainers are making. Now, are they making it because it's Illuminati? Anybody remember the Cleveland show? There was an episode where Cleveland discovered that Kenny West, the guy that he kind of helped, it's supposed to be another rapper that's fairly well known, but found out that he was part of the hip-hop Illuminati and that they were in control of. And it was around this time is when that episode was made, because this was a huge conspiracy. Was it true? I mean, the whole idea that Horus controls the entertainment, and they are paying homage by making the Eye of Horus. Now, this is supposed to be the Illuminati, alright? So, what is the Illuminati? Well, this is the original Illuminati. This is the Bavarian Illuminati. And all it means is enlightened. Okay, so what it is these were individuals that just wanted to, I guess, protect knowledge. Now, what type of knowledge? That's a different story. Was this, your physical laws, physical world knowledge, or was this esoteric knowledge, metaphysical knowledge, magic? That's where a lot of people think, that's what they were actually doing, is they were looking at the esoteric knowledge. But of course, supposedly the Illuminati had been dissolved. Now, there is supposed to be a modern Illuminati. And it's possible. There are also some individuals that believe that Freemasonry is, Illuminati. Now, it is factual. It is factual that when Freemasonry first formed, that they did take from members of the old Bavarian Illuminati, and they did take from surviving members, supposedly, of the Knights Templar. Okay, and that's where... But Freemasonry is actually a lot older than that. The Masons, where Freemasonry originated from, the Masons, there's writings that talk about them as far back as ancient Egypt. But with Zecharia Sitchin, when he gives us the story of the Anunnaki, when Homo sapien was, they were doing the plowing the fields and herding the animals and doing the domestic things that humans do, they took some of them aside, a relative few, and they taught them to make brick. And they taught them to construct with brick. Masons. And these masons were tasked with creating the temples, creating the palaces for the Anunnaki gods. Churches, tabernacle, cathedral, temple. These were the palaces, the houses of God. I know the modern Christians and things like that, they always like to say that their church is the house of God. But that's a spiritual sense. In the ancient days, it literally was the house of the physical God. And it was the Masons, it was their job to create these houses. And they held these skills that they were taught secret. No one else was supposed to know. And this is the reason why the Masons became, a secret society. Because they had this knowledge that nobody else was supposed to know. Now, the Freemasons, they are knowledge keepers. If you get into Freemasonry, you find out that that's what they're all about. They're knowledge keepers. There's a lot of things that a lot of people don't know about because they do have a lot of secret rituals. I kind of hope that in some of these secret rituals, though, that they do give them this this knowledge of where they actually came from. But that's the cordium. I know I didn't go into a whole lot, but I will be going into it a lot more in my next video because it's very pertinent to what's going on today and what we are about ready to go into in the very, very near future. Because I've talked about in other videos to where the return is almost here. Thoth and his armada. So everybody is gearing up. We're being kept separated so that we can't rise up as one and bring down Marduk and his systems and be prepared to not fight the return but welcome them in. So all this dissent, all this hate, all this division, yeah, it's all there so that we can't rise up as one. And of course, all the great unions and their militaries will be brought to bear. But I'll get into more of that in my next video. I brought up a lot of conspiracy theories, and there's a lot of conspiracy theory sources. They will all be in the description. Like I said, there's a lot, and I encourage you to read them. I'm the Anunnaki theorist. Enjoy.